In this part 3, let's work out where to start with the initial migration of our ASP.NET MVC application assets to our Blazor WebAssembly application while getting some real-world insights as we do it together. Right, so last time we managed to get everything set up so that we can get these deployments running, but how do we go from the Blazor WebAssembly boilerplate to essentially what we've got here, this full-blown ASP.NET Core MVC web application with all the bells and whistles, navigation, and all these different page sections, etc. So let's fire up Visual Studio and make a start and start actually putting some meat on the bones in terms of this project. So we'll get a fresh clone of the app. So let's just use GitHub here for the sign in. It's using the repo that we set up last time. Let's just create a new location. Blazor Migration. Okay, perfect. Let's perform the clone. There she comes off of the main branch, and then if we just open up the project, just as a quick recap, if we look inside the Solution Explorer, we created our Blazor WebAssembly project inside our repo. We've got the GitHub actions and the GitHub files, the README, etc. We've got the project structure here. Let's open up the solution. And then we can just have a quick look at the basic layout now of this Blazor WebAssembly application. So one of the things I like to do is just to get a really quick kind of a gratification that things are actually working. Something visual is sometimes quite useful. If you're not careful, you can spend a lot of time plumbing in markup scripts, etc., and just not really seeing a lot for it. So it's just nice to kind of start with something that makes you feel like you're making progress immediately. So let's just fire up the web app as it currently is. So we're trying to basically go from this to basically this. So where should we start? Well, let's start with something super simple. We've got a favicon here and we've got some basic info. Let's start with something as basic as that and actually get some kind of gratification to ensure that, you know, what we're actually doing is starting to take shape and make a bit of progress. So if we just flip back to the left side for a sec onto the web app, the assemblysoft.web application, and if we just dive straight into the root folder, what we can actually see here is that we've got this favicon, and it'd be nice just to see that light up super quick with inside our Blazor WebAssembly app, and we can just start building up some metadata as well. Now, one of the things that I like to do when performing a migration between ASP.NET MVC to anything really, but particularly with this example with Blazor, is to kind of break down the layout components and start to work with those. So whether or not you know, you were adding a brand new themed CSS template to ASP.NET Core MVC, or whether or not we're performing the migration out, everything kind of starts with the layout really. So if we just kind of have a look at the views, as we've highlighted before, we've got the shared views, and then if we go to the main layout that's kind of being used on the site, and that one is this layout profile that we've got here. So this kind of, you know, gives you a starting point. We've got the root entry point for the web application, for the browser at least, which is our HTML tag. We've got the head tag, we've got the body tag, and then we've got, you know, that wrapped around. So starting here, just for your mind at least, gives you kind of a bit of clarity. And obviously, this is where we're also adding our assets in terms of JavaScript and CSS and some of the kind of initial page structure. And I think if you start to see that lighting up in your Blazor WebAssembly app, it gives you confidence that you're kind of going in the right direction, rather than getting too deep into some specific markup that can kind of leave you feeling a bit frustrated. And then if stuff doesn't quite work, it can feel like a real kind of uphill battle just initially. Whereas what we're going to do is we're going to get some initial structure in. We'll take some basic assets. We'll see those start to light up in the Blazor WebAssembly app really quickly. And that's going to kind of give us a comfortable feeling that we're moving in the right direction. And we're kind of building this incrementally rather than this kind of big bang, all in one go type approach, which you can get into quite easily if you're not careful. So we'll break this down into some components and in a structure that is actually going to give us some initial feedback and also enable us to test as we go, so that we can determine that actually everything we're bringing across actually works. So let's take that approach now. And the first thing we're going to do, as we have alluded to earlier, is just take the favicon. So let's just kind of find out what's going on with that. How's that favicon kind of being brought into play? So if we go down through this layout page, all we want to do is actually take something that's going to actually get rendered and give us some confidence that the changes we're making are actually being applied. So we can see here that these three lines, the shortcut icon, the icon here is picking up the favicon, and there's also an Apple Touch version of that for different devices. So I think if we start with these lines and just bring them into play, we can start to get a feeling that something's moving in the right direction. Okay, so there's a number of different things that we can note here from the existing Blazor WebAssembly project, and that is that we've got a layout, a main layout.razor, and this is somewhat similar to a layout file in MVC, and we will be going into this in more detail. But when it comes to actually managing our assets and loading the application, the entry point and the first file that is served for a Blazor WebAssembly application from our Azure Static Web App is this index.html. And you can see this is laid out as expected. We've got our HTML, we've got head, and we've got body. So we've got some nice clarity here in that everything in terms of structure is quite easily identifiable. And this is also where our Blazor WebAssembly Bootstrap.js occurs and kicks in and then actually loads the application. And if you'd like to know a bit more about that process to understand that end-to-end for a Blazor WebAssembly application, then please look at the video link which is shared below for that. So I've got a video on exactly how that entire process works end-to-end. But let's just focus on our index.html and get some quick gratification. So we'll just focus on the head section for now to keep things nice and simple. And what we'll do is we'll add an image solution folder to the application. So we'll just say img for that. And then we'll add a favicon to that so that we can actually see something starting to light up. So we're adding an existing item that's defaulted to the image directory on the MVC app. That's just perfect. Let's just pick the favicon.png. There that is. And then what we want to do is just add in some simple markup to be able to see this favicon light up in the application. So let's just drop in a quick bit of markup there, which is just showing the icon and also the Apple version of that as well. But you can see that the location is favicon.png, and you'll notice that we don't use the tilde here to navigate to the root directory, because it's assumed that this index.html is loading from the www root, and the image directory is relative to that. So we just literally go straight in when we're dealing with the index.html. Okay, so we've got that file there. Let's just now save that and run the application, and we can see that that's loading now. Now, initially, you can see that we've got the favicon displaying. Now, there are times and there are certain changes that you'll make in a Blazor WebAssembly app during development which won't show. And the best way to force those to show is to have the application re-download. And I'm just opening the Chrome developer tools, and what you can do is just, if I just turn to the network tab, which I've got loaded there, we can do an empty cache and hard reload, and what that's going to do is force the Blazor WebAssembly files and all of the assets that are required for the application to re-download. So we'll just do that now, and you can see those files coming down. One of those files is indeed the favicon, which we can see there coming from our image directory, and you can see that that's been applied there. So yes, it's super simple, not much going on at the moment, but we've got some instant gratification that the changes that we're making are actually being applied. And this is a nice approach, a nice way to tackle things, to ensure that our changes are actually being applied incrementally, step by step, without anything being missed. So that's an instant sign that the changes we're making are being applied. Let's go back to Visual Studio. So we've been given a title here inside this title element. We'll just remove that and overwrite that with another title, which has come directly from the MVC layout page, just so that I've got the right format. We've also added these new items. So we've got the title, we've got the description meta tag, we've got a canonical as well, and we've got a robots, a custom meta tag here, which I've added called xbuild. So what we'd like to be able to see now is that when we do a reload of the application, is that the title that we're seeing in the browser tab is actually what we've specified here, that the description that we're seeing in the source of the application is indeed this content here, and that we've actually able to see this canonical robots and xbuild in the source as well, and something that can be picked up by a crawler such as the Googlebot. So let's just save that and give that a run, and we'll just perform a reload. And indeed, we did see that change. I don't know if you just noticed that, but if we just flick there, we did see it, and then it's getting overwritten. So what's interesting here is that the title element is picking up the title that we've specified in the index.html, but then it's getting overwritten. And the reason for that is it's being modified by a head outlet component, which exists in our Blazor WebAssembly application, which is hooking into the render, or the head rendering flow. But you can see that index is initially coming into play, and then that's being overridden by this head outlet component, which we'll look at in a bit more detail soon. But if we have a quick look and view the page source, we will indeed see that the title that we specified is initially being applied, although that's being overridden, as we'll show you shortly. But the description that we set is also being applied, the canonical, the robots, and the xbuild custom meta tag that we applied are also being applied. So at this stage, we're not seeing anything other than what you would normally do in a web application. It's just that we're using the index.html to specify some of these initial tags, and we'll see how Blazor interacts and overrides some of these as we go. But what we're going to see generally is that there's a mix and match between what Blazor offers and what we can actually do from our index.html. Okay, so kind of sticking with this theme of getting a bit of initial gratification, a bit of confidence in this migration process. Let's just start with what we kind of see at the top here. We've got this logo and we've got this navigation kind of going on here. And it'd be quite nice to kind of have this header kind of section starting to light up quite quickly. You'll notice that as we scroll down, it looks as if there are multiple versions of the logo kind of coming into play here, depending on the rendering. So let's go add those assets. And let's also add the CSS and JavaScript from the existing MVC web application, so that we've got everything into play, and then we'll look at kind of refining that a bit further as we go. But let's just kind of get that initial rendering of this component up and running by actually creating a head component to kind of mimic what's going on here. So let's just start by having a look at the existing MVC application. So if we just pull that into play, we can see here that if we go into the shared folder, we can actually see that we've got this static header full menu partial, which looks as though it actually takes care of this logo switching and also contains some of the navigation that's kind of going on as well. So let's just see where that comes into play. If we just pick the home page, so that's home, and then we've got an index page there, our CS HTML page. You can see here that the very first thing that's going on here is it's actually pulling in the layout profile, which is the page that we're kind of looking at here, which we're delving through step by step. And then it's actually utilizing a partial static header full menu partial. And that's the file that we've just opened here, this static header full menu partial, which we can observe here. So let's just pull in the CSS and JavaScript to ensure that we're not missing anything, and we can look at refining and cutting down shortly, but let's just pull those assets into our Blazor WebAssembly application to get off to basically a good start in terms of what we're adding. So we've already got the CSS folder here, so we'll just open that up in the File Explorer, and then we'll basically do the same with our MVC app. We're going to .root, we'll pick out the CSS and the JavaScript. So let's just back up one. There's a CSS directory. We'll also take the JavaScript directory. We'll just literally, for now, copy those and drop those over the top of our .root. That's added those in, and now we can actually see, if we just actually use the File Explorer, we can see a number of different files in there. We will explore those in more detail soon. We've also got the CSS along with some plugins that we're using and some fonts that we're using as well. So nothing crazy going on there, but if we just flip back now to our Blazor WebAssembly app inside Visual Studio, we'll start to see some changes in Git that we've now added. We've got our CSS folder, we've added our favicon, our image, we've got our JS folder as well, and we've made a few modifications to our index.html. So we've kind of started to put just a few of the assets in place that are going to be required to support this application. But we've not yet referenced any of these files, so let's do that now. I'm conscious of not making each episode too long, and at the same time don't want you to miss out on the journey, so I'll pause here and continue in the next episode. If you're enjoying this series, please like and subscribe to help the channel, and jam that notification bell to get notified as soon as I add new videos. So we're starting to get the pieces in place. Next time we'll build and complete the header component, making a complete transition from MVC to Blazor WebAssembly for a complete page section. Thanks for watching.